Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show here on STV2. The main talking points on tonight's programme. Don's boss Derek McInnes hits back at Pedro Caixinha. Peter Grant is the new Scotland Under-21 assistant manager. And Bobby Madden has been confirmed as the Scottish Cup final referee. Just a few of the talking points. Alan Ruff and myself, Peter Martin, will be discussing, and there's lots to discuss, and there's nothing like a wee bit of an edge to a Rangers-Aberdeen game. Both managers, it seems as if they're having a real go. One starts it and the other one gets tetchy, Ruffy.
Yeah, and quite rightly so. Obviously, the Rangers manager needs to talk up his team and needs to have a good end to the season to keep the supporters on board for obviously the season tickets getting renewed. But I can see why Derek is upset, by some of the comments. Obviously, not only about Aberdeen, but about players from Aberdeen. And I think it's been a bit disrespectful to start talking about players from a particular club that you're going to try and get when there's a big game coming up. And I hope he hasn't done it deliberately, because I think the managers don't like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's quite unusual actually to hear a Rangers manager talk about a particular player. That was the first thing that caught me on the hop. But then, of course, Pedro Caixinha started talking about the form of Rangers since he's been in charge.
Since that first match that we play against Aberdeen, we create our own league. So let's reset, we start for zero, and let's see in which position we can get in 7 matches from now. We already play 5. In each position we are. We are in second, 1 point below Celtic, 6 points, for example, above Aberdeen. So that gives us a reality about the moment or the period, let's say, last month and a half that the team is living, and the 2 more matches that we need still to play. So we need to keep the focus of the players, we keep levels of motivation, and the importance to win until the end.
And of course, this is off the back of yesterday, Ruffy, when he mentioned that Aberdeen have come to the end of their cycle because they've had a good run, players are leaving, and he's going to have to do it all again.
Yeah, it must have been a night when he was in bed and he couldn't get to sleep, when he was starting thinking up all these things, because he's obviously got the stats to suit. He's obviously not started counting the points till after the Celtic game, which he has omitted. But that's what you do. You try and make yourself believe that you are better than what you are. And as far as I'm concerned, Aberdeen are the number 2 side. They've been to a League Cup final, they're in the Scottish Cup final, and they're sitting top of the league. So for me, Aberdeen are the team that Rangers need to catch.
Yeah, here's what the Aberdeen boss Derek McInnes has had to say about it all, and boy, does he fire back.
I find it strange that he feels the need to talk about Aberdeen so much. If he thinks that doing brilliant at Rangers by being on the up, by finishing ahead of Aberdeen, then he's clearly mistaken. His job of Rangers manager is to finish above Celtic, and he should be more concerned about that challenge. And I think that for us, any team that finishes above Rangers in the league with the budget they have is doing their work well. They should probably be embarrassed that they've not finished second. And I think that any SPL manager, and I'm confident that I think any SPL manager with the budget Rangers have would finish second in the league.
Well, there you are. That's what I call one of those press conferences where you sit there and as you're listening to it, Ruffy, you just start rubbing your hands and thinking, oh, that is magnificent. Like the touch paper.
Yeah, you can actually see that he is hurting by some of the stuff that's been said, and I've already said quite rightly so. I think the Rangers manager should concentrate on what's ahead for Rangers and try and keep the Rangers supporters on board. They shouldn't have been noising up other managers. It's just not the done thing. But again, he's a new manager coming into our league. Maybe that's what he would get away with in the second division of Portugal. But here, you should look after your own team instead of worrying about everybody else.
Yeah, it's great how you and I totally disagree on this. Let's not be lecturing any managers on saying nothing. This is a breath of fresh air. The amount of managers who actually are so bland in a press conference that defies belief. So Caixinha's fired out one way, Derek McInnes is fired back the other. This is magnificent, great back page copy, Ruffy, and of course gives it a little edge. And let's not forget, this is an Aberdeen side again who dominated the game against Rangers, but Rangers in a short period of time, just like Celtic, hit them with goals at the tail end of the game to silence them. Celtic did it at the start of a game, Rangers did it at the end.
Yeah, it's something Aberdeen will have to sort out, but as we know, it's not all about 2 games, it's about 38 games over the season, and I think Derek McInnes and his players have proved that they are the better of the 2 sides. Obviously in a one-off game, it's coming up at the weekend, that Rangers have every chance to win that game. You wouldn't be surprised if they did, but Derek's completely right. With the budget he's working under and the budget the Rangers have had, there's no comparison at all.
Yeah, okay, let me put this to you then. This game tomorrow night at Ibrox is, again, in favour of Rangers, let me suggest that to you, because Aberdeen haven't won there in, 39 attempts. I mean, I think I'm going back to 1991. I actually think I was at the game. I think Brian Grant scored for Aberdeen in a 2-0 win. Yeah,
and you have to say with that kind of start, it's been a failing for Aberdeen, and if they want to do particularly well in the league, that's where you have to come and win games. So Parkhead and Ibrox, you need to have the players that the belief that they can go there and win, and that's always what Sir Alex Ferguson used to try and preach into the Aberdeen players. Unless you can come down to Glasgow and take points, you're not going to win. Yeah. Do you see them winning? Yeah, I can see them getting something out of the game. Obviously, they can stop the goals that they're conceding. Obviously, their defence looks a bit vulnerable. But if you analyse the 2 games that you've talked about, they were the better side until Kenny Miller scored, and they possibly were equal to Celtic when they were 3-0 down. So, if they could, honestly, listen. Can I just say that you should be a manager? You're talking. Well, you're just agreeing with the Rangers manager. He's come out and talking a lot of. Wait a minute. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just painting a picture. Well, yeah. Well, I've given you a bit of copy. But that's from the Ian Cathro and Pedro Caixinha book of managers' interviews. But at the end of the day, listen, results are what matters here. You can talk about 80 minutes, of dominating a game. The results what matters. Yeah. I think Aberdeen. Listen, he's done a fantastic job. You can't take it away from him. He's got every right to brag. But I don't think the Aberdeen side at the moment is good enough to go to Ibrox and boss the game and win it. Well, we've analysed the Aberdeen game against Rangers. Let's analyse the last 2 Rangers games against Partick Thistle. Partick Thistle should have won that game. Do you agree with me there? Yeah. Yeah. Against Hearts at the weekend. Do you think they were impressive? Yeah, they won. They won, yeah. You can't take that away. I'm saying it's not a done and dusted game. Are Aberdeen going to win? Yes. They're going to win on Wednesday? 2-1. Okay. Right, I'll go for a Rangers win on this one. I just think there's a bit of edge, home advantage. Here's a look at the back page headlines. Thought we'd have a wee ding-dong there just to get it all going. And there it is. There, of course, is the Daily Record. They've all got similar headlines today as we get close to the end of the season. That one there, the Daily Record talking about Pedro Caixinha looking at Ryan Jack. Could be the ideal player for him. He's out of contract in the summer. Here's the Sun. And again, as well as the Ryan Jack, there's also a link with Kelvin Wilson, possibly linking with Neil Lennon again, going to Hibs for the new season. And the Daily Mail has that story again, and also Scott Brown would like to end his days with Celtic, and also referencing the fact that he's looking forward to being available for Scotland against England. We're going to talk Scott Brown in the next part of the programme as well, but just looking at some of the headlines there in the papers, I mean, out of contract players, it's ideal. I can understand why Pedro Caixinha would look at the likes of a Ryan Jack. He's a good young player. I mean, you don't have to pay a transfer fee. Yeah, but I don't think that's done and dusted. I think obviously Rangers have identified a good young player. I'm sure there'll be teams in the Championship will probably offer a better deal than Rangers if it comes along, and then the boy will have to make a decision. Okay, can I just show you this picture, which is the Rangers players, former players actually, with the Show Racism the red card. This is Richard Gough, Mark Walters, been out there with Mark Hateley, 3 great players of the past. They've been speaking to kids and Show Racism the red card. They could do with those 3 players playing right now when they were at their peak. Yeah, and they could get the 3 that are out of contract.
you're a bad man. You're a bad man. I'll be telling Goffey exactly what you said there. Although, to be perfectly honest with you, Richard Goff looks as if he can still play fit as a fiddle, and so is Mark Hateley as well. And of course, every time I see Mark Walters, I just think of 2 step overs and then away and then across into the box. Good to see them out there with a positive message for Show Racism, the red card. More football on the way. See if you can answer this question for us. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show here on STV2. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin, from the battle between Pedro Caixinha and Derek McInnes. Here's a look at the other battles that are taking place this week. Quite a few games on in midweek across the Premier League. And of course, Motherwell Kilmarnock and Ross County against Hamilton underway as we speak. Dundee against Inverness Cally Thistle, Rangers Aberdeen and St Johnstone against Hearts. We're going to discuss those other 2 matches just shortly. And Partick Thistle against Celtic. We'll hear from the Celtic captain Scott Brown just a little later on in the programme. But to the fixtures, obviously with implications at the bottom end, Ruffy. Quite simply, Dundee against Inverness Cally Thistle. It's a battle for Cally to try and stay in the league. They still got to hope they can rescue something here and get to at least a playoff. For Dundee, I think Neil McCann maybe just needs 1 more point. Yeah,
and I think obviously with the home advantage, I think he'd possibly get that. You know, I think the only way that Inverness can survive is a win, they haven't done that enough this season. So it would have to be a massive performance to give them some kind of belief that they can take something out of the last game.
Yep, of course, Inverness look as if they could be heading down to the Championship in a straight relegation. But again, the manager, Richie Foran, is adamant there's still a bit of fight in them.
We've still got a chance of staying up. Simple as that. Yes, we need a favour from Ross County. We need to take care of business on Wednesday night then and put a huge amount of pressure on Hamilton for the last game of the season. So it's still there to play for. We're still fighting. We'll go to the end. You know, if we can get a couple of points behind Hamilton going into the last game of the season, then the pressure just shifts straight to them. A massive amount of pressure, and can they go and handle that? You're not sure, but we've got to take care of business. We need 6 points and obviously results to go our way. And so we're still there, we're still fighting, we're hanging in there. We've got a small chance.
Yeah, small, minute's the word I was looking for. I think if the players actually reflected the attitude of Richie Foran, they probably wouldn't be in this position, but they're just not good enough. They just haven't been able to respond, Ruffy.
No, they haven't, and they're fortunate. Obviously, they've got Dundee and Hamilton in their last 2 games. You know, teams that they will believe that they can take something out of. But it has to be a massive performance, and it's okay talking about the Hamilton game, but you've got to get the Dundee game out the road, and all that's just by the by, you know. And I think Dundee will want to put up a good show for the home support. I'm sure Neil McCann will want to keep them on the run that they're in. So again, it would have to be something out of left field, I think, for Inverness to win that one.
Yeah, and of course there's something to play for Dundee. Their job is not 100% complete, as the Dundee manager mentioned.
It really is all about us. We're so confident at the minute. You know, you can see that in the dressing room. I said that the mood from the boys of disappointment coming from 7 straight defeats to come in and be disappointed sitting with 7 out of 9. It shows you the mood they're in. So no, we're looking to go into the Inverness game trying to grab 3 points. It's always if they're in a situation where they're still in it with a chance, then they'll still get the same respect that we'll give Ross County, Hamilton, whoever, because the side still have their strengths. They're professional. I know the group of players they have. Richie will be trying to get them of the same opinion that they come here, regardless of the situations, and put on a performance. First of all, because it's a duty, but they'll have directors there, they'll have fans, and so no, we'll that'll have no bearing on if Inverness are down or they still have an opportunity. We're concentrating ourselves.
Well, I think Phil Martin is a brave boy if he takes the job on full time, but clearly he's managed to put that little bit of spark in them, that belief on an individual basis and collectively. Full marks to Neil McCann.
Yeah, you can't take away from the results that he's got since we went in there. The only sort of not negative thing about it was you have to appreciate who they played. You know, if he had been a manager before the split, he might have been 3 games, might have been Rangers, Celtic, Aberdeen. You know what I mean? Do you know where I'm coming from? But the games that he has played are the teams in the bottom 6. Yeah, you've still got to win them, and all credit to him. But he's no different from anybody else. He needs a good run to the end of the season because he needs to keep his fans on board as well for next year.
Only you could see a dark cloud on a sunny day from that angle, Ruffy, because they didn't look as if they could win any game.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The games they couldn't win was when the league was as it was. You know, they've started winning games at the split against teams who are down there and not winning games. So you still got to win the games. I agree with what you're saying, and he has done that.
I no disrespect to Paul Hartley, but I think the voice they were hearing and the way they were going about their business didn't look as if there was any spark or any sense that they were capable of pulling it out, even against bottom 6 sides. That's my point.
Yeah, but I'm sure if you get a chance to speak to Paul will say certain players have been out injured for long term. You know, he will give a reasonable reason why they weren't winning games, you know. And if you saw the article with Paul after it, again he said, "You've sacked me too soon. I could have turned this around." It's okay saying that, but he actually believes it, and I'm sure he will have his own reasons for saying that.
And do you believe it?
Well, when you're on a run like that, you know, and it was the fans turning and that massive defeat, you know, against Aberdeen at home. I think that was the one that you've got to try and rebuild everything, and sometimes you don't come back for that.
Okay, St Johnstone against Hearts is the other match, and you know, I'm loath to criticise Ian Castro at the moment. I'll let results explain whether he's a success or a failure, Ruffy. The facts don't lie at the moment in the league. He just 6 wins out of 24 is not good, and I don't think he'll be going too far past October if he continues in this vein. But I think he's got to be given the lad the right to bring in his own type of player. You know, a Christophe Berra, does he build? He's got Aaron Hughes, who that could be the partnership at centre of defence. The type of players that he goes on to sign. It'll be interesting to see what he does. I mean, I don't see this as a marker for them. I can see St Johnstone winning because you're talking about an experienced manager who really, you know, deserves all the praise that comes his way.
Yeah, I think he's been a very fortunate manager.
Who?
Cathro. Basically because obviously Craig Levein has identified him with Ant Budge. It's their pick. But I think anybody else might not have lasted this long. I think it's a horrendous record that he's got just now, and you keep saying, "Oh, let's wait till next year till we see what kind of player he's brought in." He's already showed the Hearts support, the players that he's bringing in, because he brought in 8 when he came. You know, you could possibly say, right, maybe that was a hasty decision to bin 6 or 7 first team players and then bring in some new ones. That certainly doesn't work right away. You can maybe give him a wee bit of leeway there, but you would have thought when these players come in, all we did was talk up the quality of these players. Greek internationals, you know, this guy here, and then you go on a run. So all he's done is put pressure on himself by not winning games.
So you reckon he's been lucky because, quite simply, the reason he's still in a job is because Craig Levein is so pig-headed about it all, that he's digging in because he hired him?
Yeah, I think if Craig Levein was to sack him, then he will be culpable as well, because let's not forget, but the rumours are that Craig is part of, not the team selection, but part of the way and direction of the way the club's gone and the players.
So he's culpable?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So you're not going to sack each other, are they?
No, but I think you're underestimating the owner. I think Anne Budge did not get to where she is in a business sense without looking at something in the cold light of day, and I don't think she'll flinch if she had to look at it and say, okay, the advice you're giving me now, Craig, is not really what I want. I'm going in a different direction myself.
Oh, that would be an interesting one.
You know, you don't think she's capable of that?
I think she's capable of it, but I think the decision would be a Craig Levein. It would be a football matter. And I think it'd be Craig Levein that would make that decision.
Yeah, no, I think Anne Budge will make it, and I'll tell you why she'll make it. She'll make it if all of a sudden the fans stop coming to the matches. That's called a business sense that she's got there. She'll make the business decision, Ruffy, surely.
Yeah, obviously the new stadium, it won't be hard to sell season tickets on the back of that. A brand new, wonderful stadium coming in.
I can see the frame
You're
going
saying-
up at the moment. It's starting to.
I saw it as well.
Excited.
I saw it as well a couple of months ago, and it looks awesome.
Yeah.
And that will be the attraction to bring in better players. But as the supporters, like any other club, they'll be waiting to see what kind of better player this is.
And there's other good news as well. John Souttar is back running, which
Yeah.
is another good sight. But I still think he's got a learning curve to go through. But it's still great to see him back running, because it was an injury picked up against Celtic, and it's been a long time out. And sometimes you become the forgotten man. Just interestingly on that, St Johnstone against Hearts, Tommy Wright. A lot of people mentioning they were surprised he wasn't in the running for the manager of the year. But I can see his side winning that match.
Yeah, I can. They seem to grind out results. Same with Partick Thistle last week. They grind out a 1-0 result, and they do that away from home. Again, he'll want to finish on a positive note as well.
Yep, absolutely. So you're going for a St Johnstone win?
Yes.
Yep, okay. Oh, we're in agreement in part two. Can't believe it. Okay, you can give us your thoughts. You can interact with us at Peter and Ruffy on Twitter and facebook.com/Peter and Ruffy. Just in case you don't know the drill of it all now, we'll have a wee break. We get a wee bit of news. And after that, we'll be right back with you for the second half of the show. Ruffy has a cup of tea and an orange from the old days when he played for Partick Thistle. And then we'll get into the meat and bones of Scott Brown. We're going to talk to Ruffy about the game coming up. Partick Thistle, his old side against Celtic, another one of his old sides. Who's he going to pick to win this game? I can't wait. Here's a question about that captain. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's football show after that short half-time break. What did you do at half-time, Ruffy, when you were playing football? Did you actually go in and maybe have an orange or something?
At half-time, believe it or not, you used to come into the dressing room, and this is international games as well. There used to be a cup of tea, obviously, there, and sandwiches.
Yeah?
Sandwiches and cakes in the dressing room. And even at international games at Hampden, you used to come in and there'd be tea there with sandwiches, like tuna sandwiches and cheese and ham. And
cakes, sugar. There's bound to be. I'm trying to make it sound as if it still gives you the positive.
Yeah, and it's only so much you can eat at half time. After 3 or 4 sandwiches, you say, I'm going to leave the cakes.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, listen, a couple of things I want to get your thoughts on. Peter Grant in as Scott Gemmell's number 2 at under 21 level as well. I think this is a Malky Mackay appointment as well. I might be wrong. I mean, I'm sure Scott Gemmell would have overseen the chat on it, but Peter Grant, I think, has got a lot to offer. He's a very different man from the perception of him as a player. This dyed-in-the-wool Celtic fan. I think he's gone away, learnt his trade, and had experiences as management which have served him well.
Yeah, I think obviously the Celtic connection's there, but I think it's what he's done down in England. I mean, Peter's been down there for a long time. Malky's obviously identified the worth that he's had at the clubs and that he's been at. I think every manager that he's been under has spoken very highly about his coaching, about in the academy and bringing through young players. And Malky's obviously identified that he's somebody that should be on board for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's got a lot to offer. I'm quite happy with that appointment. What about the appointment of Bobby Madden as the Scottish Cup final referee? Is he emerging as the number 1 referee in the country in your mind, Ruffy?
Yeah, I think we've got 2 or 3, possibly 4, who have been recognised by FIFA that they should be getting European games. I think Bobby has been getting the high-profile games, and they're always going to make mistakes. It doesn't matter what referee you are, but I think over the season I'm led to believe that you get these games because of the performances you put in throughout the season.
Yeah.
And he obviously comes out top marks. That's why he's been given that game.
Yeah, I quite like him. I think when players come in and they moan about referees that can't speak to them, I don't get the sense from Bobby that he's one of those type of referees. This season, I hasten to add, I started to back the referees at one point because I think sometimes we just take a scattergun approach to them and quite simply say, well, you know, the standard's so poor, it's woeful, they're all murder. When there are some good referees, but there was, the minute I started to back them, we went through a 3 or 4 week period where they were having a nightmare.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Willie Collum, it seemed to be Willie that was getting it all the time, and I thought unfairly as well, because once obviously people latch on to it, they start analysing every little mistake, and unfortunately had a couple of games where I don't think the players helped him out at all, as usually happens in some games. So no, I think we've got a good 3 or 4 referees who will experience the European football, and I have to say, I think any time they went away to a European game, they've done well.
I mean, listen, we very rarely get to a situation where, even on this programme, I hold my hands up, where we turn around and we go, the referee really didn't have anything major. He was in the background. He had a good game. I don't, you know, it's once in a blue moon you say that, because if it all goes smoothly, you're talking about the players. If it's something the referee does, you're on his case.
Well, the thing about it is, the perfect example is the Celtic game. You know, and that had, although the referee had to make a decision, if the player hadn't behaved the way he did in the box.
Against which team?
Against Celtic. Remember, he dived in the box in the 18-yard line.
Yeah, Schalke for Ross County.
Yeah, he dived in the box.
I just need you to be a wee bit more.
If he doesn't dive, then the referee doesn't have to make a decision. If Scott Brown doesn't lunge in the way he does, then he doesn't have to make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, basically, I mean, I'm not totally against the players. All I'm saying is some players could behave a bit better and make the referee's job a wee bit easier.
Yeah. Okay.
Because when the TV comes in, then a lot of players will be fun out quite badly.
Yeah. You kind of descended into your Partick Thistle speak there, didn't you? There'll be fun out. Brilliant. There you are. You just can't take the boy out of Mary Hill, can you? Listen, as far as the video refereeing is concerned, I think that will start to aid the referees so much. I think it'll be a huge bonus. Willie Collum already was, in the FIFA video referee assistant, just sitting watching the television. I mean, I think that'll make a huge difference to the game.
Yeah, for a long time I used to speak to the referees who didn't want anything. They didn't want any help at all. They wanted to make the major decisions, and I used to say, well, why don't you? Now you used to say, well, why don't you take the assistant, the linesman? Why don't you go over? And they would say, oh, that just complicates things, because she might tell me something that I didn't see, and then we've got to make a decision. But now I think as time has moved on, I think there's been so many high-profile decisions that I think the referees now, they need help, because they're the ones who are getting criticised. They're the ones whose careers are being tarnished by, as I said, players just being an injury and all that kind of thing.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's look towards Celtic. They're in the news heavily. As you would appreciate, we've got a Lisbon Lions special coming up next week. We've got a whole series of special programmes to commemorate 1967. 1967 is when Scottish football seemed to dominate world football, for just little moments. European football especially, our clubs were strong. Of course, we managed to defeat the world champions at Wembley by 3-2, so we kind of are unofficially the world champions ourselves. But for the full week, we'll look at some of the highlights next week. The biggest one has to be Lisbon 67, and there's been all sorts of commemorative, plaques and celebrations of the achievement of the Lisbon Lions 50 years ago. And here's yet another one. The Scottish artist Gerard M. Burns, he has commemorated that tremendous achievement by the Lisbon Lions with this fabulous painting. It was unveiled at Celtic Park. Jim Craig and Bertie Auld there. I mean, it looks great, Ruffy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll hang in a very relevant place at Parkhead. You know, it'll be somewhere when you go in, it's there for everybody to see, and the achievement that it was all about. And I think it's superb. It's great. It just sums up everything. Them walking out. We've heard the stories about them all in the tunnel before going out, but it's a fantastic photo of the. And if you get a chance to look at them, the confidence on their faces is there for everybody to see.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, Partick Thistle against Celtic. I'll get Ruffy's thoughts on who he thinks is going to win this one. But Scott Brown's been speaking about it. Of course, the question we have is about Scott Brown. 10 years at Celtic. Boy, how time flies. And the Celtic captain's been reflecting on it as well.
As you say, there's been a lot of ups and downs, but I came to Celtic wanting to win trophies, and that's why I'm still at Celtic. And here's hoping I've got a good few more years left here so that I can win trophies and bring them back and entertain the fans, and that's what we're there to do. Yeah, it shows my love for the club and vice versa as well. But as I say, I came here to win trophies. I had the chance to go down England, but I decided to stay because of the love of the club, and plus we're in Champions League football. You're playing against the best players in the world, and that's what you want to do when you're at a huge club like this, and that's what we managed to do.
I think he shut a lot of us up, Ruffy, this season because quite a few people had written him off. But I can't say I'm one of them because I knew he was playing last season with an injury.
No, I think he's shut a lot of people up from the day one when he went to Celtic, because a lot of people had the opinion that Celtic had got the wrong player from Hibs.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought Kevin Thompson was the player, you know, with the skill and everything. But I think Scott Brown has proved to everybody that he's a team player. He's not an individual. He goes out there and sets standards, and everybody in the team have to live up to that. You can see the way that stare, if you were to get that stare, I think you would, you know, be like that. And I can appreciate why he wouldn't want to go down to England, because he's a home-based player who has achieved everything in the game, and good luck to him.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, he is one of a whole squad of Celtic players determined to go through the entire season undefeated.
I know everyone says it, but we've just got to take it one game at a time. Partick's a huge game coming up here, and then we've got Hearts, and you never know what Hearts team could come up on the day. But you know, they're two good teams in top six, but yeah, again for the lads, they've had two great results there against a top six team, so it's been great.
3 games away from it, Ruffy.
Yeah, certainly are. I wouldn't be worrying about Hearts, Scott. It'd be Partick I'd be worrying about.
Yeah.
You know, I think Partick. I think Partick will have their sleeve rolled up, and as we keep talking about since it's been going on, every club wants to be that club. I don't think it will be on Thursday night.
Let me write it down.
No, I do think.
Hold on, don't say a draw. I mean, don't be stupid. Don't try and pander to the Jags.
No, you're just forcing me in to say Thistle will win then, aren't you?
Well, listen,
because I think Thistle will get something out of the game.
What, a point? Will Thistle get a point?
Yeah.
What?
Yes, yeah.
I'm writing that down. Thistle will get a point. With 30 seconds of this part of the programme, Ruffy has lost the plot. Sorry, Alan Archibald, I mean. they're roller coastering everybody at the moment. So Thistle will get a point.
Yes, I think it will. One each.
Okay, one each. Okay. Well, what do you think about that? This is a great programme today. It's just me and him arguing with each other. It's fantastic. Join us for more of it after the break. Did you get that, Ruffy?
No, I didn't. I went for Dundee, I think it was.
Yeah, it's funny you actually talking about him. I think Gordon Strachan, he's mentioned, was crucial to him in the early days, developing him, making him more mature as well. I think maybe the best of Scott Brown was 25, 26, once he kind of had that education, or that he didn't need to go, rushing about, basically assaulting everyone and picking up yellow cards willy-nilly. I thought he became a better player in his mid-20s.
Yeah, but I don't think that was any fault of his. I thought it was the Celtic team that they had at the side. I think he took it upon himself to be everybody. The centre half, the midfielder, the striker, and that's why he was charging about the park, because I don't think Celtic had the quality of player that they have now. Now, Brendan's come in, and even when Neil was there, that he just did his job, and you can make your mind up what that job is, whether it's to destroy the best player on the other side, to break up attacks, But I think as he's got older, he's added something to his game. He's not obviously a prolific goal scorer, but he brings people into the game, and I think people round about him appreciate that.
Yeah. What did you make of the extra tickets that have been available? Aberdeen haven't taken up this option of additional tickets, so suddenly Celtic have got 1,000 extra to sell. So all that hullabaloo that we had a couple of weeks ago is now null and void.
Again, it seemed when it broke and we sat here, we thought it was a silly argument. Obviously, we didn't know the reason why. The first thing we thought of was health and safety. Maybe the two supporters have to be significant segregation. So that means in between you couldn't segregate them in that top tier because there's not enough space up there. But yeah, it seems a silly argument. It seems something that could have been sorted by a telephone call. But we've seen that before, that people don't make these telephone calls to sort these things out.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, couple of things I want to get your thoughts on this part of the programme. I don't know if you noticed it last night, Ruffy, but down south, John Terry looks as if that might have been his last game. I thoroughly enjoyed the game. It was just riddled with mistakes. John Terry, nearly crying, scores a goal, possibly his last appearance in the blue for Chelsea at Stamford Bridge as well. I wonder, there's a suggestion he might retire rather than go on to play for someone else, but it looks as if he's still a fit boy.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of Roy the Rover stuff, you know, that he's been in that long. And we talk about Scott Brown up here, you've got to talk about him the same down in Chelsea. But I think when he's sitting in the house and the telephone goes and it's the boy from China who says 300,000 a week, he'll say, oh, I've always wanted to go to China.
It's always, you know what's great about you, Ruffy? You are a man who was ahead of his time. It's always about the money for you, isn't it?
Well, I mean, if I decided I'm retired, that's it, I'm not playing anymore, then somebody phones me up and says, how would you like 300,000?
Yeah, you're back out. Yeah, absolutely. I think he might as well. But worthy champions, and of course they're going for the double. And we're talking about the Scottish Cup with Celtic and Aberdeen, but Chelsea going for the double, trying to deny Arsene Wenger, you know, a little piece of silverware.
Yep, and I don't know about you, but I wouldn't begrudge Arsene Wenger winning that one.
Yeah, more sentimentality coming into it.
No, I just think that the amount of stick he took, obviously the European stuff and everything. But if he's going to go, I would like him to go with something.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't like him to go for the length of time. Any manager, the length of time being at the one club, and you have to remember the good times. You have to remember the sides that he had. You can't just think about it now. And people will tell you what he's brought. What he's brought
you have to remember 2004, 2005.
Yeah,
now you're telling me, Ruffy.
Another wee cup runs in there as well, and he's been in Europe just about every year. Yeah, top four. You know, you have to. That's what I'm saying. If he wins the cup, that's what he should be remembered for. But if he wins the cup, he might stay for another 5 years.
I think that's the biggest fear for some of the Arsenal fans. I read an interesting one today. It's gathering a bit of pace. So James Rodriguez could be one of Jose Mourinho's signings. Of course, Antoine Griezmann was another one. And then, of course, there's really rumours starting to gather pace that this Gareth Bale deal could be on.
Well, how much is that?
It's a lot of it's about 200 million, roughly. Yeah. 200 million.
Yeah, the boy Rodriguez, I mean, we all saw the goal he scored in the World Cup. Obviously, he had more to that than offer. That's why they bought him. But, I mean, we've saw the teams over there, and he hasn't really established himself, you know, on that side. Obviously, with Ronaldo and Bale and Benzema there, you know, you would think...
You're not having it.
I would have thought if he was good enough, he would have broke into that side. If he was really top quality, I would have thought he'd been good enough to be a regular in that team.
Yeah, some players don't make it at Real Madrid and can go on and prove that they're good enough elsewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Thomas Gravesen.
Exactly, yeah. But I do like Griezmann.
Yeah.
I think Griezmann...
He's the real deal.
I like him, yeah.
OK, let me get your thoughts on the other playoffs, because I think Brecon against Alloa is one of the matches, and Forfar against Peterhead. Two cracking games now. The first one is the first leg of the Championship playoff final.
As far as the Forfar game is concerned, I have to sway towards Forfar. I think when you've been up there...
That's the League One.
Yeah. But when you've been up there for so long in the season, it isn't as if they've just come out of the pack. They were up there with Arbroath for a long time and actually just threw it away at the end. So I think they're maybe favourites for that one.
Yeah, you think they're going to win it?
Yeah.
You know Jim McInally's coming down to be a guest next week. I just thought...
Well, it might be a draw.
Oh.
And then, is he coming down before the second leg?
No, he's coming down after it, but I'll let him know.
Yes, okay.
Brecon against Alloa.
Whoa. swayed towards Alloa on that one, yeah.
Why? Because Jim Goodwin's been on the programme.
Yeah.
That's what I love about you, Ruffy. More often than not, there's absolutely no logic to what it all means to you.
Jim's a great guy. He's come in, and I love everything he says about the game. I think he's definitely a manager for the future. So if he was to win this one, I think that would help his CV.
Okay then. So you're going for Alloa and Forfar.
Yep.
Okay, I'll go for Alloa and Peterhead on these, and we'll see how it all pans out.
So the two of them coming in next week.
No, sometimes I do that. I think about it long and hard. Okay, couple of things to finish, and again, we mentioned the nostalgia of next week when we've got this 1967 special time for Scottish football. I always like looking back at some of the things that happened on this particular day. And on this particular day, there was 2 Scottish Cup wins of note. The first one that we've been talking about, and we've got a special that we have going out this summer with Campbell Money and Tony Fitzpatrick, which is, of course, St Mirren 1987 against Dundee United. It was particularly painful for United because they also lost the UEFA Cup final against Gothenburg. But St Mirren, never to be forgotten, Ian Ferguson scoring the goal to win the Scottish Cup. Yeah,
obviously in my era, St Mirren were a team to be reckoned with, and I think if you ever get the chance to go to the new stadium, and the memorabilia that goes up the wall as you come in the ground is there to be seen. But once you get to the top of the stairs, there's a particular St Mirren team in all their glory with some players that you would not imagine who played for that team. The era I'm talking about, when they had all these tremendous players there, and it was an era where they were in European football. And it's, you see where, unfortunately, where St Mirren are just now, and it's unfortunate, but I always like going to the old Love Street and playing there, and I just think they're a top-notch team, and they should try and get back to where they were.
Okay, and the other one, the reason why I remember it so well, is the fact that I was living in Edinburgh at the time, Ruffy, and it was Hearts on this very day defeated Rangers 2-1 at Celtic Park in the Scottish Cup final of that day. Cameron and Stefan Adam, do you remember him?
Yes, I certainly do. Was that the game? Was it a Rangers game?
Yeah.
Was that the game when Ali scored an overhead kick? Was that another game?
I don't think it was an overhead kick, but he got a goal 9 minutes from the end. Yeah. Wasn't enough.
No.
It wasn't enough in that particular year. I think Rangers had a chance to win the Cup, but Celtic won the league, and they were in the cup final. They lost to Hearts, and it was unbelievable. I'll give you the team for Hearts: Rousset, McPherson, Weir, Ritchie, Naismith, Flogel, Cameron, Salvatore, Fulton, McCann, and Stefan Adam, with Grant Murray, John Robertson, and Jim Hamilton. The substitutes. Not a bad team, and a lot of Scots in it as well. And that was at a time when Hearts had a conveyor belt of young Scottish talent. Yeah,
you're right. Obviously I was witness to that when I was at Hibs with the record that they had. They were on a roll then. Always well supported, and as you say, a lot of youth and experience in that side.
Yep. How the time has flown past. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed the programme. We will have Darryl Broadfoot, the journalist who worked closely as the PR person for the SFA, close to Gordon Strachan. He's now in a new role. He's coming on the programme tomorrow. And don't forget, on Thursday we'll have Keith Lasley, Motherwell midfielder, will be our special guest. And next week, look out for that special show. Monday to Friday, we'll be looking at some of the great efforts of Scottish teams in European football, and of course the great Wembley Wizards as well from 1967. It was really a special year. But from Ruffy and myself, Peter Martin, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Good night.